Hello everyone, this is episode 7 of our time together. There will come a time when we no longer do these, when things are said and done, which hopefully is going to be a good time to stop these broadcasts, but nonetheless right now, hoping that you're finding benefit to this information. We do have a lot of information to cover today, and I want to wait for many of you to jump on, and that happens pretty quickly. I want to just mention that what we see going on right now is recommendations from good sources through governmental channels telling us about the need to stay away from other people and basically stay home. And that runs into contrast with what we are seeing are the recommendations of various cities. I was watching an interview earlier with the mayor of Chicago indicating that it's not yet time to close the bars and restaurants. And you know, if that's what we are being told, that is their opinion. I'm going to tell you what my opinion is based upon what the best science is as I see it, and that is that we shouldn't be going to bars, we shouldn't be going to restaurants. And I know that is going to create hardship, economic hardship right now for people who are involved in that sort of hospitality work. That said, it's going to be mandated very soon anyway. So we're talking about several days of lost revenue if we enact these restrictions now, and I think that we should. You know, there was a time when we were told no groups larger than 250 people. We talked about this yesterday, no groups then. Yesterday it was no greater than 50 people, and while we were broadcasting, the next government recommendation came out and said no groups greater than 10 people. And I indicated yesterday that I don't think that number matters. It's the concentration of people. You can be with 10 people in an elevator, and that's a bad thing. You could be with 100 people out at the beach, and maybe not so bad. So the social distancing part of our story, I think, is critically important. It is not being enacted in all parts of our country. You know, it's not a doctrine, but yet it's something that we need to embrace now for ourselves. There is a wonderful YouTube video that I'm going to post that really explains why social distancing turns out to be such an important issue, and really explains how it works and how we people, we Americans, and really everyone who's watching this broadcast around the world can make the decisions to do what yours truly believes is the right thing, and that is to stay away from each other. And the reason, let me put that in there, sorry folks, there we go. The reason it becomes so important is that, you know, you can sit and hang out with our neighbors, our friends, we're going to go out to dinner, whatever, because they're healthy. Well, that breaks down when we understand that you can be a carrier of the coronavirus for days, as long as even up to 14 days, and not know it. Be completely symptom free and be in a situation where you can transmit that. So people who you may want to have over or go out with and be next to in a social situation may well have the disease. It's been stated by some researchers that if you see the number of cases that are reported where you live, multiply that by at least a factor of 10 to get a sense as to how many people may be infected in your area. Well, as I indicated in the intro, there's some cool things going on right now that you really need to be aware of. It's good to have a little positive news. I'm hoping that it's positive. And the first thing I'm going to post before we get that is how important it is to reduce stress. Why? High levels of stress, higher levels of cortisol, that affects the gut, affects permeability, leakiness of the gut. That compromises immune function and also increases inflammation. Both of those issues are things that we want to avoid. I'm going to post a blog that we did on this topic right now, and there it is. So here is what I find to be very exciting in terms of development. The Lancet, one of our most well-respected medical journals on the planet, in their specialty journal called Infectious Disease, this was just published, describes how management of COVID-19 has mainly focused on infection prevention. Well, we haven't really focused on that too much. Case detection, we've been a little behind on that, and monitoring, and supportive care. However, no specific anti-SARS-CoV-2 treatment is recommended because of the absence of evidence. I think a fair statement so far. Evidence shows, and this gets back to something we talked about yesterday, very, very important, please listen, that convalescent plasma from patients who've recovered from viral infections can be used as a treatment without the occurrence of severe adverse event. What did I just say? That the plasma from individuals who are now done with a viral infection, like coronavirus, might be useful in treating people with the disease and perhaps even, I'm extrapolating, perhaps even as a preventive. Therefore, back to the article, it might be worthwhile to test the safety and efficacy of convalescent plasma transfusions in SARS-CoV-2 infected patients. Again, this plays upon what we talked about yesterday, that the plasma of individuals who are now recovered might be our answer, and it gets better, I promise you. Cold Spring Harbor just put out a paper, and I'm going to tell you that this paper has not been peer-reviewed. Normally, when we do podcasts and talk to people, give recommendations, it's based upon what we call peer-reviewed research, appearing in journals that have undergone what's called peer review, where independent scientists look at the study and say, is it good or bad? Should you publish it or not? What I'm about to tell you has not been through a peer review process. But that said, we got to bend the rules a little bit these days. And this is from Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory. The emergence of the novel human coronavirus in Wuhan, China has caused a worldwide epidemic. We know that. Vaccines and targeted therapeutics for the treatment of the disease are lacking. Well, we know that too. Here, this is the study, we report a human monoclonal antibody that neutralizes SARS. This cross-neutralizing antibody targets a communal epitope, I'll explain in a moment, to which, on these viruses, and offers potential prevention and treatment of COVID-19. So what this describes is the development of a human monoclonal antibody that binds, that inactivates a part of the binding part of the protein as it relates to the virus itself. That's what the epitope is. The epitope is part of the antigen molecule to which the antibody then attaches. So they've created these monoclonal antibodies that neutralize coronavirus. I'll send you the link to that. Again, this is not a peer-reviewed study as yet. You know, oftentimes it takes a long time for a peer-reviewed study to be published. I will send it along. I think it's exciting, and even more exciting, that a drug company called Takeda Pharmaceutical said it is now developing a drug derived from the blood plasma of people who've recovered from COVID-19 and using their antibodies to stimulate the immune systems of patients who may have the infection, and perhaps even as a preventative, or what is called prophylactic. This is called convalescent plasma, the plasma from people who are recovering. This can help people, patients, and even those who don't yet have the disease, develop immunity against COVID-19, or so they say. Let me read to you a quote from a Mayo Clinic doctor, Dr. Greg Poland, because it's been tried now in China. This approach that we've been talking about for the past several days has now been tried in China, in Shanghai. In China, we've only heard anecdotal reports of encouraging results. Nothing has been published yet. So the results have not yet been published, but let me just remind you, as we talked about several days ago, that this idea of using blood derivatives of people who are convalescing from an illness goes back to the Spanish flu in 1918. It's also been used many times since. It's been used in SARS. So this is not anything new that we have to invent. And what's super cool about this Takeda report is they can manufacture this as an IVIG, an intravenous immune globulin, and even bypass phase 1, 2, and 3 and go ahead and market this product. That means treatment might be available very, very soon. I don't know that that will happen. Don't know that we will necessarily adopt that approach here, but gee whiz, it is, in my opinion, very low risk. It's very, very scalable. So for those of you who are in contact with researchers, as am I, time to really get them in contact with this information. I don't know if I published it. I think I did to you, but I will send it to you now yet again. Now some statistics that I have learned. Are they accurate? I don't know. But we do know that the estimate has been that 40 to 70, as much as 80% of the world population is going to be likely, unless something miraculous happens like this plasma treatment, is likely to be going to be infected with this virus. And that means that we will have globally about 4 billion infections. It looks as if there has been a revision of the death rate down, which is certainly wonderful. We know that in South Korea, for example, the fatality rate is around 0.7%. Now that contrasts quite aggressively with the fatality rate we've been talking about of 2.5 to 3.5%. So South Korea is showing a low fatality rate. Italy is showing a much higher rate. But the reason that we believe that now, and most scientists may well be thinking that the fatality rate will be lower, is because there is wider testing showing people with who are even asymptomatic, having no symptoms, or having very mild disease. Also, I want to emphasize that the individuals who are at most risk for having bad outcomes should be absolutely deeply involved in social distancing, especially those like myself who are age 60 or above or have underlying health issues, meaning no travel, no visitation of public places, canceling your events, and avoiding physical interactions. It means that I'm going to have to find somebody to cut my hair. You're not going to be wise if you're out interacting in the agora or the public square. Let's talk about what it means to have mild disease, which we are told is going to be what the experience is for 70 or maybe 80% of people. Mild disease means you don't go to the hospital. But understand that this virus infection, even though you're home and you recover, is apparently worse than the worst flu that you can imagine. So I want you to think about that. So I want to give you a couple of sites that are worth looking at. Johns Hopkins Center for System Science and Engineering, a terrific website. I'm going to give you that. Worth looking at. Very, very good data. There you go. I'm going to post that right now. I'm going to give you as well the COVID-19 reports from the World Health Organization. Both of these are really good informational sites from where you can derive information with respect to knowing what's going on, as opposed to turning on all the news and all the hype. There's a lot of that, but I will say there is some good information on the news as well. Let me drink a little water. I have to. Okay. Let's go to some questions. And hello. A lot of people are just saying hello. I did send the YouTube video just because I don't know if anyone, if there's a problem with that. I'm going to repost that YouTube video right now because it's really, really good, talking about how we can have a huge impact on the spread of this virus when what's happening locally in terms of local government isn't necessarily addressing that. UK schools are still open. I don't believe that's a good idea. Here in Australia, eat lots of Vegemite sandwich. Sure, okay. Anyway, so look through the post for the YouTube video. Yeah, what do I think about the United Kingdom's behavior towards the virus? No lockdown. Pubs and restaurants are still open. My children are there. You've heard what I've said. I think that we've got to do what we need to do to limit spread of this virus, and that means close the pubs, close the restaurants. I know it's economic hardship, but the truth of the matter is these things are going to be closed in a couple of days anyway, or at least they certainly should. Okay, if someone hasn't had their flu shot this season, would it make sense to get one now to prevent potential flu infection, which might weaken the immune system and contribute to the risk of contracting COVID-19? I don't know if there's data to support that, but the reason you might want to get a flu shot is because it might help you reduce your risk of getting the flu. Let's say you get the flu, what are you going to do? You're going to be concerned that you may have coronavirus and then end up in a hospital to get tested or some testing center. So I've never recommended flu shots for people who are healthy. In this instance, I think we have to bend the rules to think about that as a new lens through which to look at the flu shot. I think some people should always get a flu shot, people with underlying respiratory conditions, for example, but understand that the effectiveness of the flu shot year by year is somewhere around 25 to 35%. These days, I would take that. I would take that effectiveness and think that it's worth considering. Okay. Good. Somebody just, oh no, my post just appeared. So, hello from Portland, Oregon. I understand that OHSU is treating quite a few patients there. Okay. How do we know that corona is hitting recently and that it has not infected millions that have already fully recovered? Certainly possible. We don't know that because of the low, at least in America, the low rate of testing that has been characteristic of our country thus far. So don't know. All right. Hi, David from Kathy. Great. What about ozone? Don't know. Okay. Great. Thank you. Look forward to these every day. Me too. We need to figure out a way to test everyone in the U.S. that has had the virus to end this nonsense. Can we test for antibodies? If so, how long do they last for corona? Then can we get an accurate death and incidence rate? Yeah, so the goal is to get testing done. We were a little behind on that, but we move forward. Let's be positive, and I'm hopeful that a lot of testing is going to happen soon. I think when people test negative for the virus, we can assume that because they've recovered, that their blood does have antibodies against it, hence the utility of harvesting blood from people who have recovered and considering these convalescent plasma therapies, the links to which I have now published. Okay. In New Zealand, oh, went so fast. I think that we have probably got it and had it. Good. There's been something going on around. These posts are going so fast, I'm trying to slow them down, but I can't. Okay, here we go. UK isn't testing unless patients are admitted to the hospitals. They're probably triaging their testing. They may not have enough. Okay, someone says it's not true. It's not worse than the flu. Not worse than the worst flu you can imagine. Please look at the post for those who have recovered. Some have barely been ill. You need to be careful not to catastrophize. Okie dokie. I mean, if this were the same as the flu, why would the entire planet be paying attention to this? But everyone's entitled to their opinion. I'm not catastrophizing this. I think that what I'm doing is trying to offer up suggestions in terms of how we can minimize the impact that this is having on the global population. But thanks for the comments. My son works at a grocery store and really worries me. I would agree that's a lot of personal contact with people, but great that he's helping out in the grocery store. We certainly need to have food. Is it inevitable we all get it at some point? Hard to say. 70% is a worrisome figure. Certainly 80% is. But, you know, it's been mentioned that this may be seasonal from this point on. So if you skate through this year, then there's always next year. But, you know, by then, now we're a year out, and by then we may be in an immunization discussion that this may be available. Great, thank you. I think we need to get a test for antibodies for those who've had or expected to have. Yeah, I think it's more important, however, to use the current testing, which uses the RNA of the virus, then creates a DNA to match it, amplifies that DNA and tests it. So we're really doing a direct test on the virus RNA itself, well, indirect via DNA. But antibody testing might be interesting, but I think we can assume, again, the people who are recovered have developed antibodies. Edith Palacio, lo siento que porque no puedo traducir, pero tal vez en la futura. I believe that that is dangerous, catastrophizing. Yes, I would agree with you. I don't think that that's what's going on here. So I would say, with all due respect, if this is information that anyone doesn't want to hear, then by all means, go to another podcast. That's certainly available. Having MS, not immunosuppressants, is there a concern of cytokine storm? Don't know the answer to that question. Don't know what medication you may be on. Do your very best. Do you believe in microwaving salad greens will kill the virus? I don't know, but you're saying 1 to 2 minutes. That's an awful lot of heat, and apparently heat is somewhat effective, in dealing with the virus. Can this virus be spread on the streets just by walking? I doubt that. And by individuals quickly, I would tend to doubt that. It brings up the discussion of airborne, and we've been wondering about airborne as opposed to droplet, as opposed to sneezing, coughing, etc. Is there the possibility of airborne, as there is, for example, with measles? And most of the data that I reviewed today indicates that probably not. A couple of studies that were actually done in Wuhan, in China, measured the air in multiple areas, including the intensive care unit of hospitals, and didn't find any trace of the virus, though they did find it in the air of the bathroom. And that is interesting because we do know that the binding site on the cell that's represented in the lungs is also a binding site in the gastrointestinal system. That said, that might explain why the virus was found in the bathroom but not in the place where people were just convalescing. Good. Kimberly Madero pulled her son out of school in the United Kingdom because government isn't doing that yet. I would do that with my child. I can tell you that's for sure. Yes, Vivian Moses. You need to look after your health. Let healthy young people do the trial. Oh, yeah. I'm with you. Though I've thought about it. Yes, healthy young people, as we know, already is underway, an immunization protocol that started a couple days ago. And okay, how much vitamin D is too much? From Bob Barron. I take a big dose of D2 weekly and a small dose of D3 daily. Should I take more or stay put? I think I would hope that if this is a regimen you've been on for some time, that you've had blood testing to determine what your level is. I would think better to take D3, preformed D3 than D2, and probably take it several times a week. I take it every day, but because it's fat soluble, you can get away with once or twice a week. Okay. Should sufferers of allergic rhinitis be more concerned if it is that higher risk group? That's actually a good question, because if you have a stuffy nose, I don't know how that might affect your transmissibility. But I would say that some people with allergic rhinitis are being treated with steroids, and that would certainly be something to think about. There was a comment that about the flu shot, and somebody saying they didn't want to hear that. And I would say, as it relates to the flu shot this time around, it's probably good advice, even though it's only minimally effective. I would say minimally, maybe 25, 35. We don't know how effective it is, but it's good advice, I think, this time around, because, again, if you got the flu, you'd end up possibly wondering what your illness was. So what you can do to reduce your flu shots are somewhat effective. I heard, what do you think hairdressers and barbers should be doing? I apologize that this threatens your income, but you are directly exposed to people who may cough or sneeze or who may touch their face, and you are touching their skin. It's a very difficult time. The best advice for people is to go home and stay there. If you go out, be extra vigilant with respect to hand sanitization and social distancing, all the things. Okay, a lot of illnesses you can catch at once. Does that apply to this virus? Hope so. Don't know yet, but hope so. I mean, one would think that you would develop antibodies and remain immune for a period of time at least. The problem is we don't yet know that for certain. A and B, the virus could mutate, and then we might then be susceptible coming around again. All right, let me take a couple of more questions. Any particular supplement to help our immune system? I will tell you that we've had lots of discussions on the program with respect to yes, vitamin D, yes, zinc. Those are ones I'm saying yes because I am taking them. I'm also making sure I'm maintaining my normal complement of vitamins that I've chosen for myself, including healthy slugs of fish oil. DHA in fish oil is a very nice anti-inflammatory. Good omega-3s are balancing for our immune system. Prebiotic fiber is a good choice as well. Now you can get prebiotic fiber in the health food store as a supplement, or you can eat prebiotic fiber rich foods like garlic, onions, leeks, kale, various fibrous vegetables. Why do we want to have lots and lots of fiber, but specifically prebiotic fiber? Because that nurtures our gut bacteria. And in many ways, our gut bacteria are our first line of defense as it relates to immunity. Our gut bacteria help control our immune systems and also play an important role in balancing inflammation. So whatever you can do to keep your gut bacteria healthy, in my opinion, is a very, very good thing. Green tea is an interesting idea. I think that, again, some of the literature talks about its immune boosting properties. Will it necessarily be effective here? Don't know. I'm drinking coffee right now, not this minute, too late in the day, but certainly something to think about. Restaurants are closed in Ontario. Great. No groups of more than 50. That includes funerals. Great. And keep your distance. If it takes 5 days for symptoms from day of infection, will you still test positive before the symptoms? It doesn't take 5+ days. Ginny, I wonder if that's the Ginny that I know. Gee whiz. Anyway, Ginny Frau. It doesn't take 5 days for symptoms to appear. Symptoms can appear on day 1. Symptoms can appear on day 14. But it looks like 5 days is the average, which means it's a flip of a coin that symptoms appear either before or after. And people, again, can be infectious and never, ever develop symptoms. So you might say that, oh, these people are in really good shape. They played tennis this morning, and we're going to have them over. You just don't know who might be infectious. And, you know, playing tennis with somebody, that's the same ball going back and forth, isn't it? Now it's your serve. You grab the ball that they just rubbed their face with before they served. It's crazy, but you know, it's something to think about. And I don't mean to be fear-mongering here, and I don't mean to be the spoil sport and taking away your tennis. I'm simply calling out something based on a discussion I had with somebody walking in our neighborhood that she was going to play tennis, and we thought about the tennis ball as a vector. A hospital worker wears their scrubs home. Could that be a vector? I don't think that's necessarily a good idea. We know that the virus can live for 48 hours on cardboard. I don't know how long it can last on fabric, but I would say that if that's a necessity, take the clothes off and put them in the washing machine with hot water and then hot dryer, and be really careful how they're handled when that person comes into the home. And again, let me just, if I can pull it up, I don't have to pull it up, I remembered, just to reiterate what we've talked about before, and that is that the virus can live on many surfaces. It can live 72 hours on plastic, 48 hours on cardboard. That means the boxes that you are receiving from a home delivery service, and 8 to 24 hours on a copper surface, probably metal surface. But the fact that it can last 72 hours on plastic, you know, the tape that wraps those packages you are receiving when you order online is plastic tape that was touched by the delivery person 5 minutes ago. Now, what can you do? Well, what we do is we have a spray bottle of Lysol. The packages arrive, we spray the package, leave them out for a day or two, unless it's something that's perishable. So if these are non-perishables, put them in the garage, then wash your hands. And you don't have to handle it for a couple of days. And guess what? The same thing with the mail. Don't have to handle the mail for a couple of days. Put it in the garage or someplace and leave it, and then you can get your census. We just got our census, but I didn't have to open that right away. Kind of knew that one was coming. Okay. I'm going to take a couple of questions, and then that'll be it for today. Do you think the chloroquine and zinc combo will be tried in the United States, a known drug and a supplement? I would suspect so, but I would also tell you that what the research seems to demonstrate is that not to use chloroquine, but possibly, in our time together yesterday, hydroxychloroquine, at least in vitro, meaning in the laboratory, at least seemingly to be much more effective than chloroquine, a anti-malarial drug, in terms of this particular infection. Now, Ruth is asking, is ammonia as a cleaner disinfectant a good thing, nothing else left on the shelves? I don't know the answer, but I will tell you, I think in our first episode of this podcast on Facebook, I gave a link to several hundred cleaners that have been, products that have been demonstrated to be effective. You might think about going to the liquor store, if it's open in your neck of the woods, and buy some 151 overproof. That's 151 proof. That is 75% alcohol, and that might be something that you could use. Okay. Don't know about the infrared sauna. I was given some information about that today. I think it'd be great if it helps, but I don't have data on that. What are your opinions on the theory that it has been in the United States since December when it started in China? We just didn't know it. Look, anything's possible. I mean, there's all kinds of ideas out there. And thank you, Carly, for the post. But I would say that interesting, but moving forward, I'm not sure. Maybe it was and maybe it wasn't. So it's definitely here now. You don't have to be suspicious. You don't have to not be suspicious of somebody because they're not from China, they didn't come from Italy. There's enough people in America now that you should be suspicious that anyone could have it. Flu season runs from September to April. Are you self-isolating practically the whole year? I don't know, Jessica Budlow. I don't know the answer to that question. I'm going to see how things develop. My sense is that we may develop some sort of interventional treatment earlier, and that might allow us to be much more liberal. I think that it's not like you have to. In my opinion, we're not just staying in our homes, but when we go out, we're super careful. All the things that we talk about social distancing are really important. But that said, we're not leaving unless there's something that we really need to do. And it's incredible when you think about it how much you don't really have to do. So there you go. UCSF has an article that those with a history of smoking have a 14 times mortality rate. I've not seen that. I cannot confirm that. Anyway, what about sodium bicarb? This gets back to the acidity versus alkalinity debate, and I don't have any evidence on that. Okay. All right, everybody. What last one? I guess Lisa Mack. What foods to stock up on? I would say buy the foods if they're available that you like, if you can put them in the freezer or they're canned and non-perishable. And there are lots of things that are non-perishable, like nut butters. You can stock your shelf with that. They're great sources of good fat and calories, which is something that you need. Do you think the factors are in being? What do you think the factors are in being asymptomatic? Don't know the answer to that. Certainly genetics is playing a role. Overall health, you can't do anything about your genetics, but overall health is definitely playing a role. So you can affect your overall health. And so the plea here for you is to stay healthy. Do whatever you can. Exercise every day. Get sleep. Truthfully, I woke up really early this morning, which is much, much earlier than I normally do. And I will say that possibly because of some concern. And so that said, it happened. And as such, interestingly, it's a great segue into a poem for all of you. And I thought about this because I woke up so early this morning thinking about what's going on, though, trying to get sleep, not watching the news at night, not, fanning the flames, or as one of our listeners said, catastrophizing. Not sure if that's a word, but anyway, certainly trying to avoid that. So I want to end with a poem, okay, let me just see if there's anything else. Okay, Sarah says 12 hours on fabrics. Okay, well, let me end with this poem. And let me tell you just a couple of things in closing. First, feel free to share this with everybody you like. People who link their Facebook page to mine get, this will be something on there. I don't actually truthfully know how that works, but I think that then they can watch this video elsewhere. I'll be on national TV on Thursday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Actually, I think that's going to be an international broadcast, and that will be on CBN, the Christian Broadcast Network, and answering questions live on that program. So I will be here tomorrow, that's for darn sure, and delighted to answer all of your questions. Keep them coming. And again, I got up kind of early this morning. Here's the poem. It's called The Birds Begin. It's by Annabelle Jane. Let me move it over. Despite the black, the birds begin to call the light unto the day. Persistent songs remind the sun to send the stars upon their way. The birds trust what they're yet to see. I know I trust you just the same, and always will, unfailingly. Thank you all for spending time with me today. I'll be back tomorrow. Stay healthy. Bye for now.